Think about this. Have you ever played a game where instead of some big bad evil guy, the real villain was the world itself?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really cool concept, actually. It's funny you should mention that because I was running a game just the other day, and my players were in Icewind Dale. And, they were so busy fighting goblins and trying to find this artifact that they totally forgot about how cold it was there.
Oh, that's a classic mistake.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, they kind of learned a hard lesson about, packing warm clothes and having enough rations. Yeah, one by one they started getting really cold. Their fingers were numb, and they started to get foggy-brained. And it really messed them up. They realized that the environment it wasn't just a backdrop for the story. It was like a character or even the main villain.
Right, and that's what makes Icewind Dale so interesting as a campaign setting. It's just brutal and unforgiving, and it makes you really think about every single decision that you make.
Yeah, totally.
Luckily, we've got this really incredible article to help us explore this frozen wasteland a little bit more. It's from LitRPG Reads. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Icewind Dale D&D Campaigns, Survival, Storytelling, and Strategy. And it's written by Paul Bella.
Oh, yeah, I read that article. It's a great one. It's what really struck me about this article is how Icewind Dale, it's not just about surviving the cold. It's more like you have to navigate this whole world where it's really hard to tell what's right and what's wrong. You know what I mean?
You mean like, are you talking about those classic dilemmas, like does the end justify the means, that kind of thing?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, for example, the 10 towns. The article describes these settlements as like these little worlds, little microcosms, and they're all just struggling to survive in this crazy environment. But that struggle, it leads to conflicts, suspicion. It creates this whole mentality where nobody trusts anybody, and you can't really afford to trust anyone.
Wow. So it's not even just about like banding together and fighting the cold. It's also about competing for those resources.
Yeah.
The few that are left.
Right. Imagine you're a player and you need supplies for your party. Do you trade with the next town over, even if they might be keeping resources that should go to somebody else? Or what if there's a group of refugees? Do you help them, even though it might put your whole party at risk?
Those are some tough choices. Those can really test a player's moral compass.
Totally, yeah. And the article actually argues that that's one of the things that makes Icewind Dale such a rich setting for role playing. It's not like a simple, good versus evil kind of world. It's much more complex than that. Okay,
so we've got this brutal environment, these complex moral situations,
yeah.
and then there's Auril, the Frostmaiden, herself.
Right.
I mean, she's not just some god hanging out on top of a mountain, right?
Definitely not. No, Auril is she's like a force of nature, literally. The article describes her influence as it's everywhere. Like she shapes the weather, and she even affects the psychology of people living in Icewind Dale. Like the long nights, the lack of sunlight.
Yeah.
The constant blizzards. It really just wears you down.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I'm trying to picture a scenario where the players are trying to reason with some of Auril's followers. I mean, that wouldn't be just a simple diplomacy check, right?
No, not at all. Her followers, they really believe in Auril and her icy rain. They see this never-ending winter as some kind of test or a ritual. Some way to purify themselves. I mean, how do you even begin to reason with somebody who thinks like that?
That's a really good point. That's a level of role playing that goes way beyond fighting monsters and collecting treasure. It makes you think about why people do the things they do, like their motivations and their beliefs.
Yeah, and the article, it talks about how this all ties into survival mechanics,
Yeah.
Like, we're not just talking about keeping track of your food and water. And in Icewind Dale, survival is all about understanding the environment and knowing how powerful it is.
Right, like remembering to bundle up before you go outside and finding shelter before a blizzard hits.
Yeah, exactly.
Knowing how to spot the signs of hypothermia in your friends.
It's this constant dance with death, And the article, it makes this point that these survival elements, they should be a core part of the game.
Right. So it's not just about rolling dice. It's about making smart decisions that could really affect what happens.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So let's say you're the DM and you want to create an encounter that really feels like Icewind Dale. You can't just throw some goblins into a cave and call it a day.
Right. Yeah. You gotta do something more interesting than that. Yeah. The article talks about how you need to create these dynamic encounters.
Yeah.
Like you gotta use the environment to your advantage, turn it into another challenge for the players to overcome.
Do they have any examples in the article? I'd love to hear what that might sound like.
Oh yeah, they do. Okay, imagine this, right? Your players are going across this frozen lake. The wind is like whipping around them, and the ice is creaking under their feet. And then suddenly they get ambushed by a bunch of frost giants. These huge, massive creatures just like appear out of the snow.
Whoa. Okay, so right away you've got a lot of tension. Just from my description.
Right, and it's not just about fighting the giants either.
Yeah.
The players have to worry about the ice breaking and falling through. Every step they take, it's a risk. So the environment is like it's almost like another character in the fight.
Right. It's almost like the setting itself is another player. At the table, throwing curveballs and making things much more difficult for the party.
Yeah, exactly. Or imagine like the players are trying to negotiate with a tribe of barbarians. A nomadic tribe who've like adapted to living in this frozen wasteland. And the whole conversation is taking place in the middle of a blizzard, so the wind is howling and it's hard to see and hear.
So the weather itself becomes part of the challenge.
Right. Yeah. It raises the stakes. Everything feels more tense and urgent. The players have to really think about what they say and how they act because the environment is just as dangerous as the people they're talking to.
These are great examples. It really opens up a whole new way of thinking about encounters.
Yeah. And the article goes even further too. It talks about how exploration should be rewarding too.
But what is there to explore in a frozen wasteland aside from getting frostbite, of course?
Well, the article it points out that the rewards of exploration in Icewind Dale they go beyond just finding treasure or loot. It's more about uncovering these lost secrets and making alliances and discovering things that have been buried under the ice for centuries.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Do they give any specific examples of these hidden wonders?
Yeah, they do. Okay, imagine your players are exploring and they come across this derelict ship that's frozen in the ice. The sails are all tattered and the decks are covered in snow. And as they start exploring this ship, they find clues about this forgotten expedition, like
right.
A story of ambition and despair.
That's chilling, literally.
Right, and it gets even better. The ship's hold is full of all these weird artifacts and old books, but it's also guarded by the ghosts of the crew who are trapped there.
Okay, now that's an encounter I would remember.
Yeah, right. And the article it emphasizes how these moments of discovery, like these glimpses into the history and the mystery of Icewind Dale, that's what makes exploration really fun for players.
I could see that. It's not just about finding a magic sword or a bag of gold. It's more about understanding the world.
Huh.
Like learning its secrets.
Yeah, exactly. And the article it explains how to design these exploration elements in a way that makes it hard, but also fair.
Yeah.
You want to give the players clues and make them curious, but you don't want to make them feel lost.
Okay, so we've talked about survival and encounters and exploration, but how do you put it all together into one big campaign?
Right. That's where the article's discussion of campaign structure comes in. It talks about pacing. Finding that balance between the exciting parts, the action, and the quieter parts where players can think about their characters.
So it's not just a constant blizzard of battles and survival checks, right? There are some moments of peace, right?
Yeah.
In between.
Yeah, absolutely. The article it talks about this idea of a campaign arc. Starting with the basics of survival and then slowly revealing these bigger mysteries of Icewind Dale.
I like that. It's almost like you start with, can we survive this blizzard? And then it turns into, can we solve the mysteries of the Frostmaiden and break the curse of the endless winter?
Right, yeah. The article even suggests that the campaign could be like a book, with chapters, and each chapter has its own challenges and rewards, and it just pulls the players deeper and deeper into Icewind Dale.
Ooh, I like that. I like that imagery. It's like each chapter is peeling back another layer of this frozen onion, and every time you discover something new and unexpected.
Yeah, and you know what? The article even asks the reader a question at this point. It says, "What kind of story would you want to tell in this setting?"
That's a great question. It really gets you thinking.
Yeah, it does. Icewind Dale is it's such a rich and interesting setting. There are so many possibilities.
It makes me want to get together with my friends and get out the dice and start a frozen adventure of our own.
Yeah, me too. And the article has a lot of great advice on how to make that adventure truly amazing, like how to design memorable encounters and how to make a really satisfying ending, one that fits with the themes of the campaign.
Speaking of endings, I'm curious, like what kind of final confrontation would really feel epic in a setting like Icewind Dale?
Well, the article says that the climax should be more than just a boss fight. It should be like the culmination of everything the players have been through. It's a test of their skills and their courage.
So not just like defeating a dragon, but more like making a choice that could change the fate of Icewind Dale forever.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about making those really difficult choices. Like the ones we were talking about before. Those does the end justify the means kind of choices.
I'm already thinking of some epic finale ideas, but you want to make sure that the climax feels earned, right? Like it makes sense based on everything that happened before.
Oh yeah, definitely. The article really stresses that the climax should be a direct result of the players' decisions, throughout the whole campaign.
So their choices actually have consequences, and those consequences lead to this final showdown.
Exactly. It's about making sure those choices really matter, and make the players feel like they've had a real impact on the world.
I love that. It's like the butterfly effect, but with frost giants and ancient curses.
Right. And the article even says that the best endings, they leave a few questions unanswered, just to hint that there might be more adventures in the future.
Ooh, that's clever. It's like you're closing one story but leaving the door open for another one.
Yeah. It's about giving the players a sense of closure, but also making them wonder what's going to happen next.
And I think Icewind Dale does that really well. It's a world full of possibilities.
Yeah.
Even though it's so harsh and cold, there's always that sense of adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing how Icewind Dale can be like so bleak and desolate, but at the same time, it's also incredibly beautiful. The article talks about the landscapes and how the aurora borealis like shimmers in the sky, and these massive glaciers. It's a world that can like fill you with awe, even though it's freezing cold.
Yeah, I think that's part of what makes it so interesting. It's not just a boring wasteland. There's a sense of mystery there. Like something's hidden under all that ice and snow.
Right, and the article really emphasizes that sense of discovery. It encourages DMs to think about what might be buried under the surface, both literally and figuratively.
So we're talking about more than just like treasure or ruins.
Yeah, think about the stories you could tell using the environment itself. Like, what if the players found a frozen mammoth, perfectly preserved in the ice, and it has these strange markings on its tusks.
Okay.
Or maybe they find a cave that's filled with these glowing mushrooms, and they're casting this eerie light on the ice.
I love those ideas. It's like the environment is trying to tell us something,
Yeah.
like it's whispering secrets, and the players have to figure out what it all means.
Yeah, and those secrets can be connected to the campaign story too. Like, what if those markings on the mammoth's tusks were a clue to finding a lost city, or what if the glowing mushrooms held the key to understanding Auril's power?
That's really cool. It's like the world itself is part of the story.
Yeah.
Not just a background.
Exactly. Yeah. The article suggests that DMs should think of the environment as a character, with its own personality and motivations and secrets.
I'm starting to see how much you can do with Icewind Dale. Creatively, it's a setting that really encourages you to think outside the box.
Yeah.
Embrace the unexpected.
Yeah.
And let the environment guide the story.
Right. Speaking of stories, the article also talks about pacing. Like how do you structure a campaign so that it really captures the essence of Icewind Dale?
That's a good question. You don't want the players to get burned out on on just trying to survive all the time, but you also don't want them to get bored with it either.
Right. The article suggests that a good Icewind Dale campaign has to have a certain rhythm, like a balance between those moments of intense action and then the quieter moments where the players can kind of reflect on things,
Yeah.
and develop their characters. It's like the winter itself. There are these harsh storms, but then there are also these moments of eerie calm.
So it's not just about surviving the blizzard.
Yeah.
It's about what happens in between the blizzards too.
Exactly. Yeah. Those quieter moments. That's when the players can really connect with their characters and with each other and with the world around them.
I can see why that would be important. If it's all just danger all the time, you never really get a chance to soak it all in. Appreciate how cool the setting is.
Yeah. The article talks about using those quieter moments to build relationships and explore the politics of the 10 towns, or maybe uncover some of the mysteries of Auril's past.
Right, like maybe the players spend some time in Bryn Shander, and they have to deal with the politics of the biggest settlement in Icewind Dale, or maybe they go out into the wilderness to find some frost druids.
Yeah.
And ask them for guidance.
Yeah, those are good examples, and the article even suggests that you can use those quieter moments to introduce some horror elements, or suspense.
Oh, I like that. Like maybe the players are staying in a village,
Yeah.
and they start noticing these weird things happening, like animals disappearing, or whispers in the night, and they start to get this feeling that someone's watching them.
Right. Yeah. It's about creating this feeling of unease. This creeping dread that builds slowly. You don't have to have constant action to create tension.
I think that's one of the things that makes Icewind Dale so different from other settings. It's not just about fighting monsters. It's about surviving in a world that can be both beautiful and terrifying.
Yeah, the article really captures that feeling, that mix of wonder and dread that's all over Icewind Dale. It's a world that can make you feel both amazed and scared at the same time.
And I think that's why players remember it. It's not a setting you forget easily. It stays with you long after you finish the campaign.
Speaking of finishing the campaign, the article also talks about the importance of having a good ending, a satisfying climax.
So it's not just about defeating the big bad guy and calling it a day, right?
No, not really. The article makes this point that the climax of an Icewind Dale campaign, it should be like the culmination of everything that's happened before. It's a test of everything the players have learned and all the hardships they've endured.
So it's not just about winning or losing. It's about the choices they made along the way.
Yeah, exactly. The article suggests that the climax should be a moment of moral reckoning. The players have to face the consequences of their actions.
I like that idea. It's like that butterfly effect thing, but with frost giants and ancient curses.
Right. The article gives some really interesting examples of potential climaxes, like what if the players have to make a deal with Auril, You know, they have to sacrifice something important to them in order to end the endless winter. Or maybe they have to choose between saving one town or another, knowing that that their decision will have terrible consequences for whoever they don't save.
Those are some really tough choices. It really makes you think about what it means to be a hero, you know?
Yeah, and the article also says that that the best climaxes are the ones that leave some questions unanswered, some mysteries unsolved.
So it's not about wrapping everything up perfectly.
Not necessarily. The article suggests that that a little bit of ambiguity can actually be a good thing. It gives the player something to think about, even after the campaign's over.
Right. It's like the ending of a good book. You know?
Yeah.
You're happy with how it ended, but you also want to know what happens next.
Yeah, exactly. And Icewind Dale is perfect for that kind of open-ended storytelling. It's a world where the adventure never really ends. There's always something more to discover, something more to fight for.
I'm starting to see why Icewind Dale is so popular with D&D players and dungeon masters. It's got this unique combination of beauty and brutality, wonder and dread. It's challenging, but also rewarding.
Yeah, it's a world that demands respect. It tests you and forces you to confront your weaknesses and hopefully you come out stronger on the other side.
I think that's what makes it so interesting. It's not a world you can just walk through easily. You have to fight for everything you get, and you have to be ready to face the consequences of your choices.
And in the end, I think that's what makes a really memorable adventure.
So to recap, we've talked about the challenges and rewards of Icewind Dale, from surviving the cold to figuring out the moral dilemmas. We've talked about dynamic encounters and how exploration can be rewarding, and how to create a satisfying ending that fits with the themes of the campaign. And we learned all about that thanks to this awesome article from LitRPG Reads.
Yeah, it's called The Ultimate Guide to Icewind Dale D&D Campaigns: Survival, Storytelling, and Strategy by Paul Bello. It's really great. Like if you want to run a game in Icewind Dale or even play in one, this article it's a great place to start.
Yeah, I agree. One thing that really stuck with me was how the article talked about the little things, the small details that really make Icewind Dale feel real.
Yeah, like those everyday challenges that you wouldn't even think about in other settings.
Exactly. Like always having to think about how cold it is and making sure you have enough layers on, and rationing your food and finding shelter before a blizzard comes. Those things might seem kind of boring, but they really make you feel like you're actually there.
And what's really interesting is that those little details can actually be opportunities for storytelling. Like imagine your players are just trying to gather some firewood, right? That could turn into a really tense encounter if they run into an owl bear, or a pack of goblins.
Right. Or what if they're trying to cross a frozen river and the ice starts to crack into their feet? Suddenly, something that seems totally normal turns into a life or death situation.
Yeah, and the article talks about encouraging DMs to use those everyday challenges as part of the story. Use them to create tension or drama or even humor.
Yeah, I like that. It's like those little details become a way of telling the story without actually having to say anything.
Yeah, like a show don't tell.
Right.
And it's a way of reminding the players that even the simplest things can have big consequences in Icewind Dale.
It makes you really appreciate what you have.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that makes Icewind Dale so cool as a setting. It's a world that makes you pay attention. You have to be in the moment.
Yeah.
You can't just coast through it. You have to be ready for anything, and you have to be willing to deal with the consequences of your actions. Right. And I think that's a good lesson to learn, not just in games, but in real life too. Sometimes the biggest challenges aren't the huge battles. or the world-ending threats. Sometimes the hardest things are just the everyday stuff that tests you, and makes you stronger.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, I think that that about wraps up our deep dive into Icewind Dale.
Yeah, it's been fun talking about this, and I hope our listeners are inspired to check it out for themselves.
Big thanks to Paul Bello and LitRPG Reads for writing such a cool and interesting article.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, thanks to all of you for listening and coming along on this journey with us.
Yeah.
Before we go, we want to leave you with a question to think about. If you were going on a quest in Icewind Dale, what's the one thing you would never leave behind?
Yeah, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your answers.
Until next time, stay warm, stay safe, and keep those imaginations burning bright.